Lloyd, for the great introduction. Thank you, SAP, for having me here today. I get to talk to you about things that are impacting the energy industry. So kind of high-level macro trends that we're seeing. Before I start, though, the lawyers always make me do a disclaimer. What I'm about to say is me. It's not EDF. If you buy or sell stocks as a result of something you see here, you're on your own. These slides are my views and not EDF's views. So EDF, here in California, I often get asked, why does the Environmental Defense Fund, I said, no, we're not that EDF. We're the other EDF. We're Electricity de France. So EDF, a lot of people are surprised to hear, EDF is the largest utility in the world. We own and operate nuclear power plants all over, have millions of customers worldwide. And back in 2008, EDF actually expanded into North America. A little bit of background about me. Lloyd mentioned I'm an engineer. In this presentation, you are going to see some slides that have charts and data. I'm a big fan. I think a good chart can tell thousands and thousands of words. If you're not into charts and data, I also have some interesting Easter eggs hidden, so we'll see if you can find them. I got asked to speak at this conference about 6 months ago. About a month ago, I was sitting at my desk typing away, and I saw an email pop up that said Peyton Manning to speak at the SAP for Utilities conference. And I thought, wow, that's a little odd. I think that sounds like the conference I'm speaking at. So I will tell you, it is totally surreal to click on the speaker page and see your face right next to Peyton Manning's. So that night, I have 3 boys. My youngest son, Noah, I got home. He's a huge Peyton Manning fan. And I said, no, you're not going to believe it. I said, Mom's going to be the speech right before Peyton Manning. I said, I'm kind of nervous about it. I said, I have to get everybody to listen to what I'm going to say and pay attention for, half hour before Peyton Manning gets there. I said, any ideas what I should do? And he said, well, Mom, you should do what Peyton does. And I said, well, what does Peyton do? He says, first he does this hand thing. And then he yells, Omaha. So, to make Noah right, on the count of 3, we're going to all yell Omaha, and Peyton's going to hear us in the green room. So ready? 1, 2, 3, Omaha! All right. Excellent, excellent. So here we go. We're going to talk a little bit about 5 things that are impacting energy. And at EDF Energy Services, I am president of our customer businesses. So we sell retail electricity and natural gas in the US and Canada. We manage power plants, so if you buy a power plant and don't know what to do with it, we can help you out with that. And we trade electricity and natural gas. So we see a lot of trends and things that are happening across the industry. And I can do this and have 10, 15, 20 things, but I picked 5 that I thought would be appropriate for this audience. The first is shale gas. And we'll talk a little bit about shale gas, climate change and polar vortexes, and given Hurricane Matthew, and now sounds like we got Hurricane Nicole following his footsteps, the changing generation mix and what's happening around the power generation side of our business, disruptive technology, and cybersecurity. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what companies are doing to manage these risks. So the first, and I think the most relevant, is shale gas. And I like to say shift happens. A lot of times people don't see it coming, and you really do need to pay attention. Not since Rockefeller's time has the United States found itself as the hub of the global energy economy. Shale gas and this shale revolution is so monumental in the size and scope of what it's doing impacting our markets that it really could reshape geopolitical dynamics. So what is shale gas? So back in 1980, before we had any shale gas, people were saying, and I remember this from my childhood, we're going to run out of oil, we're going to run out of natural gas. And the way we drill conventional wells, think a vertical well, very straight down into the ground, that is true. We're seeing declining rates of natural gas coming out of the ground in our conventional method of drilling for oil and gas. Associated gas is the natural gas that you get when you're drilling for oil. So when oil comes out of the ground, some gas comes with it. We capture that clean it up, and then sell that natural gas. But shale gas is significant. If you look back at 2006, we had virtually no shale gas. And the difference with shale gas is it's horizontal drilling. You'll hear fracking. But it really has been the technology behind it driving how much gas we can get out of the ground has had a huge impact on where this gas is located and how we get it to market. Going from where just a fraction of the gas in 2006 was shale to 2015, where almost half of the natural gas produced in this country came from horizontal drilling and fracking. So to understand the impact of what shale is doing today, these are the shale plays. For the last 100 years or so, we've been drilling for oil and gas in Texas and Louisiana. And we have built all sorts of infrastructure to get that gas out of the gas-producing regions of the Gulf and up into load centers. The Marcellus and the Utica shale plays, the green up in New York, Pennsylvania area, have more proven reserves than we even thought 5 years ago. So to understand what this means, again, following the arrows, historically, the gas was being drilled in Texas and in Louisiana and the Gulf and going up into those big load pockets, Chicago, New York. What we've seen is since this shale revolution, the amount of gas coming out of the Marcellus is pushing other gas back down into Texas, back into the Rockies. Here's the first of those charts that I get excited about. Back in 2008, we were sending about 5 BCF a day from Texas up to the Northeast. In 2013, it actually reversed flow. And it's actually impressive when you think there has to be a lot of engineering work to make gas flow in the other direction. It's just not flipping a switch. We spent a lot of money as an industry to make all of this happen. These are all the pipelines that had to actually do mechanical work to them to be able to allow this gas to flow in the other direction. Again, it's not a trivial exercise to get this Marcellus, this Utica shale gas out of these load pockets and then back to the rest of. So what does it mean? Price. I get asked a lot, Marianne, what do you think prices are going to do? Where do we see the price going? This is one of my favorite charts because it's so compelling. So back in summer of 2008, this was the forward natural gas curve. So I'm not sure if all of you understand, but the Henry Hub is the liquidly traded index for natural gas in the United States and really for the world. Back in summer of 2008, if you had asked somebody, a trader, what price do you think I'm going to be able to buy gas for in October of 2016, that green dot right there shows you where October 16 is. So about $9 an MMBTU. And these were a lot of very smart people who said, there's not enough gas, we're gonna run out, so we're gonna have to, start converting. So gas prices are gonna stay high at over $9 an MMBTU. Well, we were wrong. Here we go. So in the summer of 2013, this is that same forward gas. So now, in fast forwarding to summer of 2013, if you wanted to buy that same MMBTU of natural gas, the market was saying, okay, you can do that, but it's about $4.50. Summer of 14, we had something interesting happen on the front part of the curve, but the back end of the curve, October 2016, was still trading at roughly $4.50 an MMBTU. One thing I'd like you to notice, between the summer 2008 curve, you'll notice all those peaks and troughs. Those are summer-winter spreads, and that's infrastructure. That's how we get gas in and out of storage and get people to invest money in managing those seasonal shifts in the natural gas markets. In the 13 and 14 curves, you can see that the amount the market is paying for storage has dampened, meaning they think there's plenty of gas still around even in the winter heating months. And then this says today, really it's Friday, curve, but where the natural gas market is today. And again, you can see very little spread between winters and summers. And clearly back in 2008, when we all thought we knew exactly what was going on, we were wrong. When you take the today's forward curve, it's when we get to October 2020, we'll be wrong. The question is, how do you manage and how do you prepare for significant swings. And the natural gas markets are very important for us. 30% of our generation, electricity, comes from natural gas. And it typically is, we call the fuel on the margin, meaning if natural gas prices go up, the price of electricity for all of the generating facilities is going to go up. Climate change and polar vortexes. Yeah, it's good. So, how do you know you're in the middle of a polar vortex? This is Anana. I love Anana. She's the polar bear at the Chicago Zoo. It was so cold during the polar vortex that they had to bring the polar bear inside. The polar vortex actually had a lot of impact on our regulatory, our compliance frameworks. It was so cold that load was about 25% of its normal levels. When you look at how many megawatts that is, it's about 35,000. That's enough to serve Chicago, Baltimore, and Washington, D.C., those cities combined. So it was a significant impact to the power grid. And when power plants can't run because they can't get the fuel, and we have rolling brownouts and it's freezing outside, the politicians pay attention. And if we can't manage the infrastructure and keep the lights on and keep the gas flowing, then the government's going to feel obligated to come in and tell us how to do it. So how we as a utility industry and energy industry make sure that our systems are robust enough to handle these polar vortex type events is very important. So how do we measure a polar vortex? Brace yourself, winter is coming. We do it by measuring heating degree days. So heating degree days, or HDDs, you calculate that by taking 65 degrees minus the average of the daily high and the daily low. Now, if you look at that chart, the green with the snowflakes, that's the polar vortex winter. And I wanted to highlight the winter following that, actually it was colder in Boston and New York. It was a little bit more mild in Chicago. But what we've seen is winters, we have extreme cold. We had a very warm winter this past year, and Anana got to stay outside and hang out. But how we prepare for these weather events, and whether they're superstorm Sandys or Hurricane Matthews or polar vortexes, is really, the onus is on us as the utility to make sure that we can combat that. So the next topic is the changing generation mix. So I get this data from the EIA, it's the Energy Information Association, it's the government. So if it's wrong, we can blame them later. The chart, though, I think tells a very interesting story. When you look at the generation mix, so this is for all of the United States, if you stack up how many megawatts of electricity are coming from the various fuel types, you'll see that about 52% of our electric generation was coming from coal, 19% of nuclear, 9% for renewables, and 16% from natural gas. Fast forward to 2010, 10 years later. It's not a long time, especially in a utility time frame. 10 years is not a lot. The percentage of coal dropped to 37%, and the percentage of natural gas in our fuel stack jumped to 30%. So the amount of natural gas being dispatched doubled, and the biggest loser was coal. Now, the EIA also does a forecast for us, so they're going to tell us what they think this gen stack is going to look like in 2040. And this is one where I think they've got it a bit wrong. I think when I look at this, I'm not sure that seeing how dramatic the reduction was in coal from 2000 to 2010, we're seeing a lot of pressure on the coal fleets, and with shale gas and this really cheap natural gas alternative, I do think we're going to see a sharper decrease in the amount of coal generation, and probably the winner in that will be renewables, that the renewables are being implemented and installed at a rate that is pretty significant. Two other fun facts. One, about 10% of all of the electricity generated goes to fuel the internet. If you think about that, it's incredible. When I first started my career, the biggest power loads on the grid were the refineries, the chemical plants. Everybody wanted to serve those guys. Today, it's the data centers. The data centers are huge. When you take all of the iCloud computing, the data center loads, the personal computers, iPhone charging, the whole gamut, it is a significant amount of energy that is needed to really drive our internet. One Google search uses the same amount of energy as lighting a 60-watt light bulb for 17 seconds. There are billions of Google searches happening every day. So it's really important how we forecast this usage and how we plan for the future to meet these needs. To show you how profound wind installations have been, I'm going to click a button here in a second and it's going to animate. Back in 1975, we had one wind farm. It was enough energy to serve 4,149 homes. When I click this, we're going to see time lapse, and new wind farms will be blue dots, and then when they switch to a new year, they're going to turn purple. Here we go. 1985, got some more in California. 95, 2000, we start seeing them. 2002, 2004, 2006, 2008, 2010, and 2012. 2012, we had 815 wind farms, enough to serve 15 million homes. What I find interesting about that is not only the number of wind farms has grown, but the efficiency and the amount of energy that we can squeeze out of those wind farms is significant. So I mentioned in 1975, that one wind farm, 4,000 homes. The average wind farm now produces enough energy for 18,000 homes. So the technology is really making some pretty good advances. California GenStack, figured since we're in California, to talk California a little bit. This is another data set from EIA. You can really find a lot of great information out there. About half of the generation, the electricity in California is fueled by natural gas. Hydro, utility solar, wind are all making up the balance. And then don't worry so much about that summer 2015, summer 2016. Those charts show you on an average day across the summer what the different fuel types were. What I find very interesting is that chart to the far right. That is the delta in 1 year, year over year, between 2016 and 2015. And what you'll see is thermal is negative, meaning less energy was produced in California by coal and natural gas. Hydro was up, and I discount that a little bit because a lot of that depends on snowpack and other things. Non-hydro renewables, that light blue, that's the one to look at. That's solar. That is the amount of energy that we're seeing across the peak coming from the solar installations. And then imports. California still is bringing in considerable amount of energy from outside the state. So this is the duck curve. The first time I saw the duck curve was back in 2013. I'm sure most of you have seen the duck curve. If you haven't, this is it. The first time I saw it, I didn't see a duck. I saw like a terrifying diagram from junior high health class. But but we call it the duck curve, and that's good. I can't help myself. I recently got asked to go to the White House, and there was a summit on renewable energy. And one of the interesting things that came out of that summit was that the senior advisors at the White House said, we really wish we had spent more time thinking about storage and entwining the storage with the renewables, because they have to go hand in hand. They have these intermittent resources. If we can't store that energy when the sun's not shining or the wind's not blowing, we're going to have some serious issues. On page 3 of this White House report, which you can go to the White House, and it's actually very well written, I recommend it. On page 3, they have the duck curve. And they're talking about how important it is for us to solve these energy storage and the technology around, making sure that we can follow the load shape, the net load, when we're getting a lot of energy from solar in the peak of the day, and then we've got to go to more traditional resources at night. Disruptive technology and cybersecurity. I'm going to start with disruptive technology. A disruptive technology is one that displaces the old way of doing things. It turns something around to where it's almost not recognizable when it's done. And my favorite example, the example I use quite a bit, is Uber. I'm an Uber girl. I love Uber. I was surprised to learn when I started doing research for, I don't know, pushed the wrong button, there we go. The total US taxi cab revenue, so if you take all of the money taxi cabs in the US generate, it's about $11 billion a year in revenue. Uber's valuation a year ago was $41 billion. So 4 times the total revenues for the United States taxi cab industry. After this latest round of funding, we're looking at a valuation $62 billion. But what Uber did, and the lesson to learn from Uber, is it took an industry, the taxi industry, which was largely unchanged going all the way back to the 17th century when the first for-hire horse-drawn carriages showed up in Paris and in London. Think about that. That is disruptive. They came in to New York City, so I'm originally from New York. They came into New York City in 2011. The value of a single taxi cab medallion in 2011 was $1.3 million. That same taxi cab medallion today is worth roughly $600,000. Uber, 100 Uber cars and a bunch of time later, and they have half the value of the taxi cab industry in New York City. So the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And spiders, I'm terrified. This is what keeps me up at night. This is, you can go to norsecorp.com. A lot of you probably know who they are. They track cyber threats, and they can see the IP address from the source to the target, and they've got hundreds of thousands of sensors all over the world, and this is what they do. The first time I saw this, we have it up in our IT side of our shop. It reminded me of the 1983 War Games movie with Matthew Broderick, where you've got these people shooting at each other. The computers have taken over. One of the reasons this keeps me up at night, EDF Energy Services, which I mentioned is our U.S. customer business, so not the big EDF in Paris, but EDF in Houston. In the last 7 days, we have had 147,000 hostile hacking attempts to get into our computer systems. 136,000 of those were brute force password discovery attempts, so really trying to actively get in and take over. I was in New York a couple weeks ago visiting my grandmother. Graham is awesome. She's got a PhD in nuclear physics. She's 91 years old, and the things that woman has in her brain are amazing. And she asked me, she said, I just read about how the Iranians took over a dam in upstate New York back in 2013. She said, should we be worried about that? I said, of course we should be worried about that. I mean, we really have got to place controls and security measures around those. So again, this is what keeps me up at night. So how are companies adapting? The former CEO of NRG said, mortal threats from solar. Home Depot is now selling wind turbines. You can put them on your house if you can get your homeowners association to say it's okay. IKEA is selling solar panels. You can actually go to IKEA, buy a solar panel, and they'll send out the installers and put it on your roof for you. 3 examples that I'm quite fond of. BMW. They have a manufacturing facility in South Carolina. It's right next to a landfill. They pipe the methane gas over from the landfill, they burn it, and they actually get half of the electricity that they need to run that facility from the landfill gas. Kroger, here in California, has built a facility where they take the damaged and expired food. They use a bacteria tank. They can make biofuels, and then they burn those biofuels to run the facility. And Walmart, so we have a new Walmart across the highway from our subdivision, and we were in there, and my husband and I were walking in, and I stopped him, and I said, do you notice anything? He thinks I'm a little crazy. I said, he's like, I don't notice anything. I said, really, you don't notice anything? He said, Marion, I don't know what you're talking about. I said, exactly, there is not a single light on in this building. Walmart has really been able to take technology, skylights, and done some very impressive things with their energy management systems. How many people, show of hands, have a landline in their home still? Not that many. Companies are starting to figure out that you can't use a land telephone line to get into people's homes anymore. There are still 2 consistent ways, though, to get into homes: your cable and your electricity. And what we are seeing are companies starting to pair up. So I love Matthew McConaughey. I put him in just about every presentation I get. So Comcast and NRG doing an electricity bundle in Pennsylvania. It comes with free HBO. Google bought Nest for $3.2 billion. Again, a way to get into your home and see what the usage is around your electricity and then driving your efficiency around your units. Honeywell, Wi-Fi. Thermostat now is voice controlled. I actually have a Honeywell smart thermostat in my home. Being in the biz, I actually live in Houston. We've had deregulated markets since 2000, and my house is on indexed to the spot market. So when I buy my electricity, the price changes every 15 minutes. So I do walk the walk. I wanted to show you a chart. This is actually data from my smart meter on a hot day in September. And one thing you might notice that looks a little funny is hour ending 17. In the afternoon, there's a drop down and then it goes back up. That's because the price went to over $2,000. So I'm on a pilot project where if the power price in Houston goes above $75, my retailer automatically sends a signal to my smart thermostat and raises my set point 4 degrees. So what happened on this day is there were some issues, prices went high, the thermostat kicked up, and we actually saved money. You might also notice that hours 7, 8, and 9 look a little strange. That's my pool pump. So we actually, depending on the time of year, move when the pool pump is running. So in the summer months, we do it in the morning when power prices in Houston are cheap. In the winter months, it's normally the middle of the day, power prices drop, and that's we do that. Now there's sometimes some unintended consequences. My husband's a school teacher, and so he sent me this text message, says, I'm assuming power prices are high since our AC is set to 75 degrees. To which I said, yes, prices went over 1,000, they're back down. The nuke plants are not running full out, to which he says, okay. And then I said, and the wind stops blowing, to which he says, I hate when the wind stops blowing. So I've got 3 more quick examples. Papa John's. We sell, I mentioned electricity and natural gas. We actually sell electricity to the largest cheese manufacturer in the country that happens to sell their cheese to Papa John's. Papa John's, with the sustainability drive that they're really having, people care about what they eat, and they want to feel good that it was done in a environmentally friendly, sustainable way. So Papa John's recently in Houston distributed 12,000 trees. DirecTV in Solar City, you can see there's a theme here. DirecTV in Solar City, they've actually just built 10 miles up the road in Long Beach a solar installation, and they're training their sales reps who go out to do DirecTV to cross-sell and also do solar power and electricity. Very interesting to see how these 2 companies are working together to really make a change. And then Pepsi, which owns Gatorade, at this White House event I was at, they actually came out and said they're going to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, their electric vehicles, hybrids, really pushing for ways, non-traditional ways to promote change in markets. So key points to take home. Shale gas expansion, it is happening fast. We don't see it slowing down. Climate change and public policy, and which side of the debate you watched and rooted for last night, if any, it's going to continue to be an issue after the election. Renewable growth is continuing, and I think it's happening at a pace faster than most folks are expecting. And the infrastructure build-out to accommodate that, again, is not trivial. Companies, number 4, companies that are embracing technology are having better outcomes, better customer, better customer relationships, stickier, and having better financial outcomes. If you figure out a way to manage all of that data, and cybersecurity needs to be a focus for our industry. So on that note, it is time to get Peyton in here. So I think we'll do one more on the 1, 2, 3. We'll give him one more Omaha. Right, 1, 2, 3. Omaha! All right, thank you.